So let's shift here and talk a little bit about the state budget. So Georgia recently concluded the 2020 legislative session, and during this session, the legislature adopted a budget that cut nearly $1 billion from K through 12 education and cut $2.2 billion total, while not really adopting any significant options to raise state revenues. All of this in response to the recession caused by the pandemic. If you had been in the legislature during the legislative session's final couple of weeks, what kind of budget would you have advocated for? And do you think that a budget in today's context should have done more to raise state revenue to lessen the cuts that were put into place?
I absolutely think that we could have had more revenue generation. Or another way to look at it would be we could have had less revenue depression. Because one thing that Georgia has been doing very aggressively for years is tax credits to try and lure businesses in. And study after study after study after study shows not only do tax credits not work for the purpose they are designed for, so you don't get more jobs, you don't really get more investment in the area that you can tie to those tax cuts. You don't get more economic activity in the state because of those tax cuts. But what you do see is those tax credits get paid to a company that's headquartered in California or Delaware or Florida or New York. And my geography is not great, but I do know that none of those places are Georgia. And none of the people who live in Georgia live in those states. And none of the people benefit from whatever the money gets spent on in California, New York, Florida, wherever. And let's not forget that some of these companies are international companies. So it doesn't just go to somewhere else in the United States. It goes to somewhere else in the world. It goes to Europe. It goes to China or Russia, And so we can, just by slashing those tax credits, it's not even generating revenue. It's just stopping the bleeding. It's stopping Georgia taxpayer dollars from leaving the state for no benefit to Georgians through the government. We're giving our money to the government and they're like, okay, well, thanks. And here you go, Apple. Here you go, Hollywood. Here's our taxpayer dollars. I hope you have some fun with them. The other thing that we could do is, I know that the way Georgia's income tax works is we base it very heavily off of the federal income tax. So whatever I don't know if you use those online programs, but when you use the online tax preparation programs, at the end, do you want to do your state stuff? Sure. Well, you look at the Georgia one, and it's basically just copy from line something on your 1040 to here, and then that's your starting point, and then you start doing your Georgia taxes. 40% of revenue, of missing revenue at the federal level, is from people in the 1% avoiding taxes by multiple tricks that they do. So that's, if you look at whatever Georgia's revenue is, you could probably guesstimate 40% of what we're not getting is also coming from those people. So attacking that would be something I would look at. I don't know how easy that would be, since, like I said, it's just tied to the federal government. And I don't know that people would want to untie that and then do our own just from the beginning. What was your gross income? Okay, here's your adjustments. Now you have adjusted, and go through all that. I think that it's a shame that our government, the state government that's constitutionally required to provide education, has worked so hard to move its work in that area away from the state and out to the counties and cities, so that in a place like where I live in Cherokee County, we have great schools because we have a very high tax base here. We have very high property values that are going up. So the millage rate doesn't have to be as high, and you still get tons of money. So you can we pay our teachers really well. We have great facilities. We have great equipment. We have great support staff, you know, all the extra people that aren't teachers per se, but extra people in the school that help. So that, and then as far as school goes, the last thing is that there's 1 year, I think, in the past 20 years where we have fully funded schools at the very, very pathetic level that the Gold Dome has put together for what's an appropriate amount of state funding for the schools. I would definitely work hard and work with anybody and any party to increase school funding and make a constitutional amendment, let's say, that schools will always be fully funded. There will never be a time. And if you have to sell bonds and use our AAA credit rating, which there's a reason to have a AAA credit rating, and it's when you have an economic crisis. If you come up to an economic crisis and you have a AAA credit rating and you say, no, we're just going to suffer instead, then you're not using it for anything. You didn't build it for anything.